to our coaching conversation for today, and we're going to talk about the value of business coaching for executives. I'm Jim Petersen with Diversified Professional Coaching, and what we want to focus on is how business coaching brings value to senior leaders and executives, those responsible for vision, organizational performance, and culture. I'm joined today by my fellow principals at Diversified Professional Coaching, DPC, Daralee Barbera and Thomasina Skipper. We are an organization that provides business coaches to help executives reach those goals that are important to them. So I'm going to start out by asking a question to Thomasina Skipper about strategic focus. Thomasina, let's begin with that strategic focus. How does business coaching help executives stay focused on long-term vision and organizational strategy rather than getting pulled into the short-term operational distractions?
Thank you, Jim, for that question. And it is very important that as a business owner that you don't get bogged down into the weeds and the details. It's so very, very easy to do that because that's where you feel comfortable. But to truly take your organization to the next level, to maneuver it to a higher plane, you've got to elevate yourself as a executive so that you can see further and understand more. That's what I think every coach does for us. Coaches help you to understand what are the most important parts that are moving and the things that you should be doing to keep you from falling down into what I call the worker bee syndrome, where you're saying me, I, as opposed to elevating to a higher level and seeing further strategically, knowing the things that are coming, the levers you ought to pull, the people you should, and the resources you should marshal together in order to get your organization to the next level.
Yep, Thomasina, I totally agree. Coaching is of great value for our executive coachees because it is so easy to get pulled into those daily urgent issues that from the day that we open, or from the moment that we open for business to the time that you close, you can easily have other people thinking that this is your issue where really, no, it's not. And so figuring out what, as the executive, what are the things that only the executive can do? And if there are things that someone else can be doing, we help coach our coachees to figure out how do we get that done through others, because strategic focus is critical, right? It is not the urgent, it is the strategic, it is setting direction, it is alignment for all the stakeholders and guiding the organization to the future. We need the executive to be able to have the space and opportunity to do that. So thank you.
Both of you are so correct. You remind me of a short story I can tell about when I became a new senior executive at a firm. And one day the CEO called me in and said, "How do you think you're doing?" And I touted how well we were doing over last year, the productivity of our people, how happy they were, and how proud I was of what we were accomplishing. And he told me, but that's not what being executive is about. He said, "You're doing nothing in the area of thinking strategically of where the company needs to be. And if you want to grow as an executive, you better focus on strategy." So that was an eye-opener for me, and I think for a lot of executives, because you get there by what you've accomplished up to that point, but that is not the role of the executive. The executive has to plot where the organization is going into the future and what potholes, what challenges may come up so they're ready. So let's move on to our next question, which is the leadership mindset. And we'll go back to Thomasina. What kinds of mindset shifts do you typically see in executives through the coaching process?
Oh, that's an excellent one, Jim. We've kind of noodled about this before when in our podcast about moving from the worker bee to the leader, to understanding that the definition of management is getting the job done through others. And most of the time we've seen people got elevated to leadership because they could do the work. Now they have to work with people to get the work done. I often will do an exercise with my coachees about what's the difference between delegating and dumping. And we talk about that because there is a true skill set and understanding that you delegate to people not just because they need to get the work done, but as a method of professional development. You tell them not only what you want done, but you ask them how they think they can get it done, and you give them the environment to grow. That makes all the difference in the long range, and how to get your team developed and to get your organization moving.
Yes, and that makes me think, Thomasina, that when, like, how do we get things done, right? If we're doing it, we have total control over that. We have control over ourselves, we have control over the outcome. But really, leadership is a position of influence where we are not the one actually doing it, because there are very few things that only we can do, and we need to do those things. So other things we need to look to the team to fulfill. So it's through influence. And so that's a whole different seat to be sitting in. I like to always think about what really is leadership. So just real quick, it's the intersection of three things. It's the intersection of what the leader is doing, the intersection of what the followers are doing, and the intersection of the situation itself. So the leader is only one of those three things. So we look at where do those things intersect? That's leadership. So
what you both said is so true, because our coaches also work on helping leaders lead through complexity. Executives grow more comfortable navigating ambiguity, balancing competing priorities, and making decisions with incomplete information. And it happens a lot. You don't always have the information you need to get the right answer. These are mindset skills that aren't taught in most MBA programs, but they're essential in today's environment. So let's move to our third question. And we want to look at what the overall value of business coaching for executives is, particularly those who are responsible for leading larger teams and organizations. So we'll go back to Thomasina to answer that.
Oh, thank you, Jim. The value of coaching to an executive. Wow, we can do a whole hour just on that alone. I think about different scenarios that I have been involved in where the executive felt as if they had, as you said before, they had all the weight on, but none of the resources. So coaching, literally, in many, many cases, I felt like I was the only person in that executive's world who could literally say, step back. Let's really look at this from a different perspective. The small business owner that told me they've lost a team member, but they're going to save money by not replacing them. And my answer would always be, so let me get this right. You're going to work real hard, make a lot of money, and then hire somebody and give it away. And they would laugh because I would remind them, you go in business to make money, you don't go in business to save money. Let's figure out how to make money. And those types of conversations, they couldn't have them with their peers. They couldn't have them with their subordinates. As an executive, having someone who helps put up the mirror and ask the tough questions so that they can get back in line to figure out what it is that they want to do, that I think is exceptional value that we bring as coaches.
Well, and Thomasina, what you described, it can also be sort of like the old cliche, lonely at the top,
Yeah.
too, where executives are often in an isolating kind of an environment, because who are they going to talk to? So that's where the business coach is just invaluable, because coaching provides a confidential, non-judgmental space to think through those high stakes decisions, and then to align with all the things that the executive must have a finger on the pulse of all the time, from dealing with the board, the peers, the people that you serve, the communities that use your services, and so forth, and then all the people on the different teams. So there's so many things, and that executive coach helps to avoid any blind spots. And I will say, at DPC, we have over 1,200 years of seasoned leadership experience. I just can't help but bring that up, because one individual, one executive, just, you can't know it all, and that's okay. And that's where that teaming approach with your business coach just can take you to a whole different place.
Boy, ladies, you're right on the money. Ultimately, business coaching is not just about solving problems. It's about sustaining excellence and creating a leadership legacy. That's the kind of value that endures well beyond the current fiscal year or the current team. And that's what we're about. So I thank you both for being part of this conversation. And again, I want to highlight the value of diversified professional coaching and the coaches who are available to each of you to consider in getting that leadership excellence and that legacy we're talking about. It's been fun for all three of us to be with you here today. We wish you well. And with that, we'll conclude.